Hello and welcome to the Maths Guide, and today we're going to continue looking at creating and using expressions. Now I'm going to fly through the first couple of these slides because you've already seen them in a previous video. So looking at an example expression, here's a question using the variable n for how much John makes. And the question was, how much money does he make per day depending on how many hours he works? The answer would be 10 plus 9 times how many hours he works. And we use the variable n to represent those hours, so our answer would be 10 plus 9n. That's a basic expression. Another basic expression was a toy weighs W grams and 12 toys contained in a box which itself weighs 20 grams. How much does the box of toys weigh? Well, we have a box of 20 grams plus 12 toys which weigh W, so that'll be 20 grams for the box plus 12 times the weight of each toy, which is 20 plus 12W. Looking at multiples of expressions, or adding expressions together as well as multiples of expressions. If a teddy bear weighs W grams and the doll weighs 15 grams more than the bear, how much do 12 dolls weigh? So in this question, first of all, we needed to know how much each doll weighed. Each doll weighed W plus 15 grams. So 12 dolls weigh 12 times that. And we found that when we multiplied 12 multiplied by the expression W plus 15, we got 12 times W plus 12 times the plus 15 gave us a total of 12W plus 180. Similar expression, except this time the doll weighs 15 grams less than the bear. So each doll, we have to look at what each doll weighs first again, weighs W minus 15 grams. And then we had to multiply that expression, W minus 15, by 12. We multiplied each term out, so 12Ws gave us 12W, and 12 times the subtraction of 15 is a subtraction of 180. Let's have a look at combining the expressions again. We're combining two expressions, one with teddy bears and one with dolls. We know that each doll weighed W minus 15, so 12 dolls weighed 12W minus 180. Each bear weighed W, so the 10 bears weighed 10W. Then we have to add these two expressions together. And you've looked at adding expressions together before, and we know that when we're using the same variable, meaning the same thing, we can add them together. So we've got 10W plus 12W gives us 22W. We also have a subtraction of 180 grams, and our final expression is 22W minus 180. Let's look at doing that in a single step. When you've practiced working out each bit line by line, you can do it in a single step. So this is the same question. We've got 10 bears and 12 dolls. So straight away we write down, we know that the bears weigh 10 times the weight of the bear, so that's 10W. That's our first part. We know that a doll weighs W minus 15. That's our expression for the weight of a doll. We have 12 of those, so that's 12 times that expression, W minus 15. So we write that on a single line. On the next line, we write 10W. We expand that expression to get a cleaner expression for it. So when we expand the expression 12 by W minus 15, we get 12W minus 180, and again we combine it together. Please note that when you're working these questions out, you work them out line by line, one thing under the other. So it's very clear exactly what you're doing. We're doing the 10 by the W and the 12 by the expression for the weight of a doll. Then on the next line, we find out that 10 times W is 10W, and 12 times the expression for the weight of the doll is 12W minus 180. And we combine that together because we know that when we have the same variable, meaning the same thing, we can combine them. We have 10W plus 12W gives us 22W minus 180. Now we're going to have a look at what happens when we get negative values, because sometimes we get negative values in an expression. So a box weighs 100 grams and a bear weighs W grams and a doll weighs 15 grams less than the bear. So the question is, how much does a box containing 20 dolls weigh? Again, we have an expression for the weight of a doll, which is W minus 15, and we're going to be multiplying that by 20 to find out the weight of 20 dolls. We're also going to be adding the weight of the box, which is 100 grams. So on a single line, we write down 100 plus 20 times the expression for the weight of a doll. That gives us 100 plus the 20W minus 300. So our final answer is going to be 20W minus 200, which is the weight of a box containing the dolls. This is actually going to be a positive weight, but the expression has negative values in it, and that becomes important in the next section that we're going to be looking at. We can also write that as minus 200 plus 20w. The order isn't that important. 20w minus 200 or negative 200 plus 20w means the same thing. Let's have a look at subtracting expressions. A crate of toys weighs 2,000 grams. This crate contains boxes which weigh 50 grams without contents, and each box contains 20 dolls which weigh W grams. So this is a slightly long-winded question again, and again, as I said before, in the exams you're going to have lots of word type questions, so you have to get used to reading them and understanding what's being asked. Let's have a look. We have an expression for the weight of a doll, which is W, so 20 dolls is 20 W. Let's have a look at what we're doing. Write an expression for the weight of the crate when two of these boxes are removed. Okay, that's our question. So we need to have an expression for how much the weight of a box is. We need to have an expression for what the weight of two boxes is then, and then we need to subtract that. So each box weighs the 50 grams plus 20 W for the dolls. So that's our expression for the weight of a box. It's 50 plus 20 W. You should be able to work that out now. The crate weighed 2,000 grams and subtracted the weight of those boxes. So that's 2,000 grams less two of those expressions. We write that as 2,000 minus 2 multiplied by the weight of the box. Our expression for the weight of the box again is 50 plus 20W. So we have 2,000 minus 2 boxes, or 2,000 grams minus less the weight of 2 boxes. That's how that's written there. So keep that in mind that that's what you're doing. But now we have an expression and we can just expand that expression and work it out. We're taking away 2 sets of 50, so that's taking away 100, and we're taking away 2 sets of 20W, so that's taking away 40W. So we have 2,000 minus 100 minus 40W. And in all these questions, we tidy this up. We know that 2,000 minus 100 is 1,900, and minus 40W just stays as it is. And that's your final answer. We need to think now about what happens when we have an expression with negatives in it. What happens with them? Combining expressions with negative values. If a bear weighs W grams and a doll weighs 15 grams less than the bear, how much do 10 bears and 12 dolls weigh? Again, you've been able to work this out. I'm combining a couple of questions here. There's going to be an A part, a B part, and a C part. And as you work through each section, you find an expression that will help you in the next section. This happens a lot in exam questions, so please be aware that the question A will help you with question B. So the first part, what do 10 bears and 12 dolls weigh? It's going to be the 10W plus the 12W minus 180. The answer there is 22W minus 180. I'm not working through the question, I'm just giving you the answer because you've done this in previous slides. Next part, a box weighs 50 grams with those dolls and bears in it. How much does the box weigh? Well, it weighs the expression for the 10 bears and the 12 dolls plus 50 grams for the box. You add those together, you get 50 plus 22W minus 180. And at this point, working with negative and positive numbers, you should know that plus 50 minus 180 is minus 130. Just a little reminder, if 50 people get on the bus and 180 people get off the bus, it's the same as 130 people have got off the bus in total. But we combine them, 50 plus 22 minus W minus 180 is 22W minus 130. Tricky bit now comes in part C. A crate weighing 3,000 grams has 2 of these boxes removed. How much does the crate weigh now? Well, in part B, we have an expression for the weight of the box, and we're going to remove 2 of those. So our answer is going to be 3,000 minus 2 boxes. The 22W minus 130 there is the expression for the weight of the box. So we have 3,000 grams minus twice the expression for the weight of a box. The tricky bit now is what happens when you're subtracting this expression for the weight of a box. If we're taking away 2 sets of 22W, we know that's minus 44W. The thing is, what happens now if you're taking away 2 subtractions of 130? Minus 2 of minus 130. And what happens is, if you're taking away a negative value, it's the same as adding. We may have seen this in previous questions when we're adding and subtracting. If we're subtracting a negative value, it's the same as adding. That's an important thing to remember. So we have 3,000 less 2 groups of 22W, which is minus 44W, and we're subtracting two groups of minus, where we have -2 times -130, which is +260. At this point, when you have an expression, you don't really think so much about subtracting two subtractions of 130. You just look at the expression and you go -2 by -130 gives me +260. So when you're multiplying a minus by a minus, you get a plus. Whenever you have whenever you're multiplying the same sign, you get a plus. So -2 by -130 gives me +260, and we combine that to gives us 3,000 plus the 260 is 3,260 minus 44W. Now that's a lot of talking, but what you'll find is at each step you work out an expression for each part you're looking for. If I only gave you question C without the intermediate answers, you would have to first of all figure out an expression for 10 bears and 12 dolls, which was the answer to part A. You would then have to figure out an expression for the weight of a box, which is the answer to part B. You would then have to use that expression in part C to figure out the answer. So sometimes a question will go straight to part C and you'll have to figure out all the intermediate parts, but it's best to practice all the intermediate steps as you go along. But one thing to remember here is when we're subtracting a negative value, it's the same as adding. So -2 by -130 in that final question of part C gives me +260. So just remember that part, and as you're working out expressions and simplifying them, you'll find out it's actually quite straightforward. Okay, so I'm going to give you a number of questions. You're going to have to figure out expressions for yourself, and sometimes you're going to be subtracting negative numbers and the result is going to be the same as adding. And for each of the questions, I'm going to ask you to simplify, which means just tidy everything up, which means you don't leave 10W plus 12W, you combine it to make 22W. You don't leave, as in part C, you don't leave 3,000 and plus 260. You combine that to 3,260 minus 44W. You tidy it up as much as possible, and then you give your answer. So the best of luck with those questions, and I wish you well.